What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Welcome back to Love and Rice Podcast with your host, Aunt Ma.
I'm your other host, Christina.
And if you guys are new to this podcast, make sure you guys subscribe and follow us on all podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Guys, we are almost to the end of the year. Happy holidays to you guys.
I feel like the holidays are so crazy because they just feel so close together. Like once Halloween hits, you're like, Thanksgiving, bam. And then we have our kids' birthdays and then Christmas. Like it's such a blur.
I think the holidays are a little bit crazier for us because we got Leia's birthday, then we have Thanksgiving, then we have Christmas, and the day after Christmas, we have Enzo's birthday.
Yep.
Right? So it's so much going on. And so in this episode, I actually want to talk about for our life and those 2 months, how it's so crazy. Like, how do we not spoil our kids with so many gifts and so many things to do? You know, like we always talk to our kids a lot about how to be grateful, you know, and things like that. But I still feel like sometimes they're a little bit spoiled. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, you know, because it's like there's just so many gifts going on.
I feel like it's always something that we're talking about. And because we try not to spoil our kids, but at the same time, like we have relatives and family who want to give them a lot of things too. So we have to start telling them like, hey, don't worry about giving them like 100 gifts for Christmas and their birthday. Like they don't need that many things.
It's not 100 gifts, but like, you know, for example, my mom, you know, she wants to give her grandkids like 2 to 4 gifts each.
Yeah.
And then she has friends who love her so much that they want to give gifts to, you know, her grandkids. And so there's even more gifts. And like, I don't know, it's a lot, right? And then we're like, okay, so do we even need to get our kids gifts, right?
I mean, I feel like over the years, maybe in the beginning, we gave them like a few gifts for their birthdays plus Christmas, right? And it's also close together. And then over time, we're like, you know what? I think it's becoming so much because we've realized that like once we give them so many toys, it's overwhelming for them. So then it's like, oh, well, like, how do I focus on one toy when I have this toy to play with and this one and this one and this one? And then they kind of get bored very quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe we just need to start giving them 1 or 2 toys max from like each of us. And then they can actually appreciate and enjoy what they have rather than like, okay, what's next? All right, what's next? Like getting to the next gift.
2 from each of us?
Well, I'm saying 1 to 2.
It should be 1 from each of us. That's already 2 gifts.
I think 1 from each of us is pretty good now, like seeing how they're getting spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard because like we both want to give our kids birthday gifts and Christmas gifts, as you should, right? But it's so meaningful. Like this one is from dad, this one's from mom, because I don't know, there's just so much behind that, right? And so it's hard to have like a sharing gift to give to the kids, which we do now.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if you're going to do a sharing gift, like it would just be like a big gift from both of us, say like a bike, for example. Right. So I think that's like pretty reasonable.
All right. So I want to talk about this past couple weeks. We've had this whole trip experience and things like that. And we can talk about what Leia wanted to do for her birthday. You know, I initially thought that, you know, we're going to do something here in Vegas, right? Something really easy. But what did she tell us that she wanted to do?
So every year we ask the kids, what do you want to do for your birthday?
Well, what is that? You're like, with your eyes closed, like you don't want to ask them? Like that tells me, that look tells me that we shouldn't ask them anymore.
No, I mean, I like asking them just to know what they're thinking. But at the same time, it's kind of like gotten to the point where they're like, well, I want to have a birthday party and I want to invite like 10 or 20 friends. I think that was initially what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then this year, because last year we threw a party for her. Mm-hmm. And this year I was just like, we can't host all of your friends, and it's so much because I just remember how like hectic it is trying to like host all the kids, and then you're also trying to host like the parents and stuff.
Okay, so when Leia turned 6, we actually did it at Chuck E. Cheese because we didn't want to do it at home because it's just way too much work. The cleanup and the amount of people in the house is a lot, right?
Yeah.
So even at Chuck E. Cheese, where you don't have to do much work, it's just so chaotic trying to make sure the parents are okay, the kids are okay. Then you got to go with the kids to play games, stuff like that. It's a
It's
lot
actually more
going on.
chaotic because you're like, we can't lose the kids. We got to keep track of everything. And then you're like making sure that the gifts are there, that no one just walks by and takes it. Like there's so many different factors to think about. So then after we told her like, okay, well, maybe let's not do that.
Yeah.
And then I think she was talking with you, right? And then she mentioned that she wanted to go to Legoland.
Yep.
Yeah.
So mind you guys, I thought we are going to do something here in Vegas, right? And she asked for the Legoland, which is in San Diego. And that is about a 6-hour drive from here, right? What were your thoughts when she first asked about Legoland?
I was trying to talk her out of it.
Why?
Because we keep going back and forth to California because we always have work events, personal events, and other things that have been happening.
Yeah.
So I think we just got back from California like a few weeks prior to that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh man, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about taking another road trip. And then for us, because we have Ryu, so usually we tend to stop at like our parents' house and we'll drop him off there. And then we got to drive to the next destination.
Ryu is our dog, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a lot, and I was just like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything else you would want to do out here? you
Yeah.
know?
I think she really loved the idea of she wanted to go on roller coasters that were her size.
Yeah.
And I love that part about her choosing Legoland because she's getting more adventurous, and I love her experiencing the roller coasters and stuff like that, so I didn't mind. My thought right away was, yes, let's go.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'm like, oh man, it's such a big trip, right? And so what was our final decision on why we said, yes, let's just do it?
Well, I think you were more yes the whole time and I was more no. And then in the end, it happened to be around the same time that my nephew was celebrating his birthday. And my brother and his whole family, they were planning on going to Legoland as well. So for us, we're like, so my initial thought was, I don't want to spoil her. I don't want her to just think that like she could just say, I want to go to Legoland. I want to make this crazy big trip just for my birthday. And we're just going to say yes. So I think I had to really take everything into consideration. Like, okay, well, we can make it a family trip with my family. The cousins can play together.
That's a big factor.
Yeah.
I think that's something she's always going to remember is going to a theme park with her cousins.
Yeah. And
that's got to be the funnest thing in the world.
That was the one thing that she told me too. She was like, we've never gone to go on a trip with our cousins like that before. And like, I would really want to do that. Because I think I was trying to justify things with her. And I was like, Leia, if we go, like, would you rather go just for your birthday? Or do you want to go for the experience of like playing with your cousins and being with your family? And then she said she'd rather be with her family and stuff. So I think that's what convinced me. And we made the trip not be based off of her birthday alone, but we made it like a family affair.
So this is the changing factor for me and why I said yes. It was one, she got to be with her cousins, right? The huge factor. Two was I asked her, is it okay if we don't go to Legoland and make this trip on your actual birthday and birthday weekend? Can we do it the next week when it's Thanksgiving week, right? They don't have as much school. Then we get after Legoland, we can go to LA and have Thanksgiving with my parents.
Yeah.
Right. So like there was a lot of that we can put together. And then the other thing was I told her, if we're going to Legoland, this is your birthday gift. We are not going to buy you a bunch of gifts. This is your gift. And she totally understood that.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. And she was like, yeah, we don't have to go this weekend for my birthday. We can go next weekend with my cousins and things like that. So I was like, oh, okay. She's being pretty lenient. She understands. And I'm like, you know what? I'm down to do the drive.
Yeah. And she still got gifts.
Yes, we still gave her gifts after that, but it was more of like her understanding everything and saying yes to that. And then, the gifts just came after that conversation, days or weeks later.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's more so of like setting boundaries for the kids. So if they start demanding or expecting things, then I'm like, hold on, why do you feel like you deserve this? And Just trying to get them to understand that they shouldn't always expect be having things being given to them, you know?
Do you think what we did defeated the purpose of what we're trying to do? Like, so we're trying to not spoil our kids, right?
Yeah.
And so we set the boundaries. And then after she accepts the boundaries, we give her what we wanted to do, like give her the gifts and things like that as well.
Well, I think for me, I was like, oh, shouldn't the trip be enough? Because they were also, I guess usually when we go to Legoland, we're like, okay, you guys can get one Lego set. But I was like, I don't know, we're making this big trip for her. I think that should be her present. And I think for you, you're like, nah, they should still get a Lego set.
So it's hard because like one thing is like spoiling them and like every time you go to a theme park, you got to buy something. No, I don't want to do that. Especially, you know, at Disneyland, we never buy anything, right? But Legoland, I feel is so different because it's more of STEM, it's more science, it's more engineering, building, right? And like the Legos itself is so great for them for learning instructions, patience, and things like that, you know, and how to check your work carefully. So that's why I'm okay with getting them Legos at Legoland. That's why I'm okay with going to Legoland to spark their interest in building things. So to me, it's more of this overall grand scheme other than just like roller coasters and rides.
Yeah.
You know?
And I will say, I do feel like Legos are more of a productive toy. Would you even call it a toy to give
It's
them?
a toy, yeah.
Right? But we learned this trip that if you're going to get a Lego set, don't get it from the Lego store, right? Because we've had our experiences where we would buy it at the store, and it's like their sets can be like anywhere from, I don't know, $20 to like $200.
Yeah.
And we will see the same set that's like $80 at Legoland. And this year we're like, you know, it's around Black Friday time. Let's just check out other deals at other places. And then we found it for what, I don't know, like 50, $60. So
That's still a lot of money.
it's still a
dude.
lot of money, but at the same time, if you're talking about $80 and you're checking somewhere else that's nearby that's selling it for $50, like that kind of helps justify the purchase, I guess.
Yeah.
But at least you got to be smart about that stuff. But for them, I think because we spent the whole day with them, and then at the end of the day, they always had it in their mind like, oh, but we said we're going to get a Lego set. So then we're kind of like exhausted, right, from spending the whole day at Legoland with them. And then now it's like, all right, let's go to the Lego store, let's look around. And then that's when it becomes more chaotic because they're like, well, but we want this one, can we get it now? And then we had to teach them like, hey, be patient, like we just did all of this with you right now, like if we can get it somewhere else. And we had to teach them like the principle of trying to be conservative and not just splurge and like buy things as soon as we saw it.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, even though I feel like it was more work for us to try to explain that to them, and to show them like, well, we gotta leave Legoland, we gotta go to the other stores to go order and pick it up, but we're gonna save this much money for you. So it's kind of like teaching them to be responsible at the same time and not to like demand something on the spot because they see it and they want it in their hands, if that makes sense.
So the Asian in me wanted to find the deals to buy Legos for cheaper. You know, like when we're there in the store, I was like, okay, let me look on the Target app. Let me look at Walmart. Let's see what's on sale, right? And so that was the biggest part about teaching the kids. It was really like, we don't have to grab this right now and leave the store with it, because now that's when they expect everything every time, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest thing I wanted to teach them was, hold up, we can get this cheaper, right? That's why we went to Walmart and Target.
Mm-hmm.
We
went to 2 different stores just to be
well,
able to.
That was a teaching moment, right? The
Yeah.
first teaching moment, in my perspective, was like, let's go drive to Walmart and Target tonight in San Diego
Yeah.
and get them those things. So they knew that they didn't have to walk out the store with something, right? I don't want to do that next time. Next time it'd be like, you know what, guys? I found this. It's going to come in the mail in a couple of weeks and you're just going to have to wait. So like little by little, you know, the urges have boundaries, right? They get set. So that was kind of like, I know for you, you're tired of going to Target and Walmart after Legoland, but I was like, this is a really good teaching moment.
Yeah. But I guess it's more of if we're doing all of this stuff for them, I think I expect more from them as well
Mhm.
because
What are you expecting?
we set boundaries going to Legoland, and we told them like, you guys have to have good behavior. I don't want to hear any complaints about anything. Remember why we're here.
Hmm.
Know that we told you, yes, we can get you a Lego set at Legoland, but at any time we can take it away from you. um and then knowing like that, they eat slow sometimes and they get distracted and things like that. So that was another expectation for me. I'm like, hey, you need to make sure that you're eating your food and still just having good manners and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like really trying to teach them. I want. I'm with you on that, right? Like
Yeah.
teaching them that they need to earn it. That
Mm-hmm.
way they don't feel spoiled,
Yeah.
right? So that's one of the biggest things. And I feel like right now, as we talk about it, we sound like we're spoiling our kids because we're buying them something. We're driving 6 hours away to go somewhere for a birthday, and then we gotta buy something there. Like that does sound spoiled,
Yeah.
right?
But I think at the same time,
Why?
it's
Yeah.
kind of like
Why is it
more.
not? Why is it not spoiled?
It's not spoiling because with everything that we do for them, okay, yes and no, it's spoiling, but I think we have them earn these things just because we say it. We're not like, well, okay, well, they're acting really shitty and they're being brats, but okay, we're still going to give it to them. It's more of like constantly reminding them throughout the day, like, hey, I know you're asking me for this right now, but do you see what you're doing? Like, you're eating so slow. You're not, you're making everyone wait for you, and we're getting exhausted. Like, how do you expect us to still want to get you something if
Hmm.
you're not doing the bare minimum, right?
Yeah.
Um, and
It, yeah. You sound so harsh right now, and I think some people might not understand if they don't have kids that kids take forever to eat.
yeah.
Forever. And I'm talking about like
Yes.
1 hour, 2 hours. That's our kids.
And this is
So
one thing we didn't know before we had kids. Like, we're just like, oh, to me personally, I was like, oh man, having kids is going to be so cool. Like,
yeah,
the easiest part is getting them to eat because
yeah,
they're going to love it. Like, who doesn't love food?
yeah,
And I think over time we've learned that like eating is probably the hardest thing because sometimes you worry so much as a parent and you're like, why are you not
yeah.
eating? You're so small, And we try not to do that.
All right.
But
So okay, so
But you also know what it is. I think when you're in a marriage or a relationship and you have kids, you have to have that balance. So like you're the more giving and wanting to get them things all the time. And then I think for me, I have to be the one that's like stern and set boundaries.
so you know why I have that mentality?
Why?
It's because I have seen, friends that people I've become friends with on social media,
Yeah.
right? And I see that, they have kids our age,
Mm-hmm.
And there's one friend whose kid had cancer, right?
Mm,
And she had cancer and stuff, and I'm following his story because it's so sad and also inspirational at the same time.
yeah.
And thankfully she made it out of the cancer,
Mhm.
right? But the thing that stuck to me was he said in a post, he said, if your kids want something, just give it to them, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future, right?
Yeah.
Like, how bad are you going to feel that you said no to everything and then something happened to them and you
Mhm.
couldn't give it to them, right?
Yeah, then you're gonna
So
regret it.
that's why my mindset was like, okay, if they want it, let's give it to them. But I agree with you that they'd
Yeah.
have to earn it. And not only that, now we also have to teach them to be grateful after they have it, right? So like, there's a whole process. It was
Yeah, I think you're always like, yes, let's give them this. And then I think for me, I will always be the one that's like, okay, well, let's think about it. Like, what are the pros and cons, and try to make it a more meaningful decision. But then in the end, I always end up saying yes and I agree to it, because for me growing up, like my whole life, even until now, like I grew up in a household where my parents never really gave us any gifts.
Mhm.
Like we didn't, like we would celebrate our birthdays with like a cake and just eating regular food, but the cake was our gift,
Yeah.
you know? And I think growing up, I kind of resented that because I was like, how come my parents like never gave us anything or wanted to buy us even like the smallest thing for us to feel like more special for our birthday? Um, and like even till this day, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, we don't do gifts, we don't celebrate holidays." And I'm like, "Man, that sucks." And I think
Yeah.
that's why we do what we do with our kids cuz I'm like, I wish we got to do these things. And yeah, I don't know. I think we're trying to break like generational curses, and we're trying to like give our kids what we didn't have growing up.
It's weird because I feel like in the Asian culture, what we do seems like we're spoiling our kids.
Mhm.
But then I see everybody doing this with their kids outside of the Asian culture, right? Like going to Legoland for their birthday is
Yeah.
normal,
Yeah.
right? And buying them a Lego set.
Yeah, well, I think for us now, when we do things for them, I think it's more for the experience rather than like a physical product.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think you feel that way also because you're like, oh, I never got that when I was a kid. Why do you? So
Yeah.
now you're so lucky that you get it, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think my parents realized it because I think in the beginning too, they were like, "Oh, it's their birthday, cool, happy
Right.
birthday." And then I think over time they're like, "Actually, we have so many grandkids. We don't know what to buy for the kids because we don't know what they like for their age, what's new, and things like that." So I think it's like the pressure of not knowing
Mm,
what right gift to get. So now they're like, okay, we're just gonna do it the Asian way and give like red envelopes to all the grandkids. You buy whatever you want with that money, which is cool too.
yeah.
I think that's great because it wasn't like that with us. So now they've realized like, oh, times have changed. We gotta treat our grandkids differently
Your
because
your grandparents never gave you red envelopes for your birthday?
I don't remember. Maybe they did,
That's
but I
that's
just
what I loved about being Asian in America because growing up Americanized, you do get to celebrate the birthdays, the cakes, the gifts, the
yeah.
parties. And then when you go visit your relatives, they do give you the red envelopes, $5, $10,
Yeah, I think it was more of the relatives who would celebrate with us and who would take us out and be the ones to give us gifts. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it was my parents that,
That's what I'm saying,
yeah.
dude. Is like every time it's Christmas, I'm like, hey, you want to get your nephews, and nieces some gifts? And
Yeah.
you're like, nah, we don't really celebrate or we don't have to. And I'm like, bro, but it's your nephews, and your nieces.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think it's very we don't know what to expect with my family because we're always like some years we'll randomly give gifts to like the kids, and then randomly like sometimes we don't see them at all, and then we just don't, which is fine. Like
yeah,
that's just what we got used to. But they still will celebrate Christmas within their families, and we celebrate within our families, which I think is cool too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so how do we teach the kids after they get what they want and after, ingraining so much of earning with those things? How does gratitude come into play now? Like,
Um,
what's your way of teaching them?
of teaching them gratitude.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it's just I'm constantly trying to remind them of what they have so they can
Yes.
appreciate it. I think just like the other day, the kids were complaining about the food that they had, right? And they do a lot. Like they're kind of picky because they eat good food. And I have to remind them, I'm like, you're complaining about eating these carrots when like, do you remember how many people you've seen on the street that are begging for food and don't
Yeah.
have anything, where they have to rely on people like us to come and give them stuff to eat, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like reminding them like, hey, you could have it a lot worse. Like, try to think about all the things that you actually have and try to be grateful for like the small things. Like food is just constantly given to you, but imagine not having it.
Yeah. I told Leia the other day when we were having dinner and she didn't want to eat those carrots. And I'm like, do you remember when we went to Walmart to buy your
Mm-hmm.
Legos?
Yep.
And there was a homeless guy outside
Yeah.
and it was cold. It was, 10 p.m. and he was hungry.
It was the
And
holidays
we
too.
gave him a banana. And
Yeah.
he was so
And
happy
cookies,
and
chocolate chip
grateful that
cookies.
he got the banana.
Yep.
And, he didn't say, oh, I don't want the banana. He took it and he ate it.
Yeah.
So how can you say you're not going to eat your carrots? Like, you
Mhm.
don't, you're in this house right now. You have a bed at night. Like, you need to understand that this is, um, this is something that's special, right?
Yeah. And I think also just teaching them not to be wasteful with what they have.
What do you mean?
Well, when it comes to
Give me some examples.
food maybe,
Yeah.
clothes, making sure that they take care of their things, because then if they don't take care of it, then it gets damaged and ruined and gets tossed, and that's being
I
wasteful.
think that's one of the biggest things about parenting is that we always have to put so much work into the kids of not
Yeah.
damaging what they have,
Yep.
their books, their toys,
Yeah,
and
because to them, they don't realize like how much time goes into working to make the money to buy the things to set it up for them, and for us to try to keep it clean and organized and to take
mhm,
care of it for them. So it's like now setting those boundaries and expecting them to take care of it. So
yeah,
we can show you what to do, but you guys are the ones that need to manage it and be responsible for your own stuff. Because once you give them more chores and more
yeah.
responsibilities, then they understand the importance of what they have and just how hard they have to work to maintain it.
I feel like you give them the Asian gratitude talk a lot,
Yeah.
where you're always like,
What do you mean?
you always say like, um, grandma and grandpa didn't buy me birthday gifts, and then they say, oh, why not, mommy?
Yeah.
And then you say, because we didn't have money back then, and they're like, why didn't you have
Talk about all
money?
that.
Right. And so like there's this whole conversation going on, and like you always
Yeah.
instill this the Asian um
I don't know.
yeah,
I'm becoming my parents, I guess, but at the same time, it lets them know the struggle that you went through, because right now they don't see the struggle and they don't feel the struggle because we allow them to live a better life, and we try to keep them from dealing with that struggle. But at the same time, they have to understand it, and maybe they need to
so
struggle more so
how
they can learn.
much of that talk do you think they actually understand?
Um I think they understand to a certain extent, but sometimes when things come up, they might forget. So that's why it's that constant reminding them, like, well, hey, remember, like, I didn't have this.
Do you think that's a to you it's a talk about like being grateful?
Right.
To them, are they taking it in as a lecture?
It could be a little bit of both. Yeah, but it needs to be said. Like, they have to be reminded, because it's so easy to forget things, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Like, even for us
Well,
as adults.
here's one thing that we did for Leia to really make her not feel too spoiled, right? We did say yes to the Legoland,
Yeah.
right? But on her actual birthday, we're like, "What do you want to do?" And she's like, "Let's go eat a buffet,
Oh,
right, at the
gosh.
casino." I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to go to a buffet," right? But
Jeez.
I told her, you know what? We're not going to do a birthday cake
Yeah.
because one, the buffets are so expensive, and we're going to Legoland. That's a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and two, at the buffets, there's a whole dessert area
Yeah.
and with ice cream and baked goods and candies and like there's no point of having a cake after that, you
Yeah.
know? I was like, are you okay with not having a cake if we go to the buffet? And she's like, but I really want a cake,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, you're gonna have to make a decision here because we can't give you everything. It's very expensive. I was like, what if we put some candles? We'll go to the buffet to the dessert section, pick up a bunch of stuff, and put a candle on it. And she's like, okay, that's
Yeah.
fine, And I'm like, cool, you
Yeah.
know.
And actually at the buffets too, when we tell the servers,
Yeah,
like, "Oh, do you guys do anything for birthdays?" Then they're the ones that actually get like these special desserts, and they plate it all nicely, and they put the candle and stuff too.
yeah,
And they help sing for the kids. And I
yeah.
thought that was pretty cool, because we can be doing that on our own, but I think it's more so of the gesture of like having the workers do it and then bringing it out that makes it more special.
There just needs to be some sort of tradition,
Yeah.
and that's all I care for. Consistent traditions for them.
Yeah. And
Um,
and I think she knows that going into buffets, because we've done that for your birthday too, where it's like, okay, well, we're not gonna have a cake, but you know what to expect. You know this is how it's gonna be.
yeah.
And we still end up choosing it because we like the buffets. So
Yeah. All right. So after this whole 1 week trip that we did with Leia and Enzo, how did the whole experience feel for you? Like, was it worth it? We did Thanksgiving, we did all these things.
I think it was worth it because we although like Legoland was specifically for Leia and the kids. I think we made the whole trip revolve around like family and being grateful about family and everything else within that trip. That I would say it was pretty worth it because we made it about spending time with my family, and then also we were gonna spend Thanksgiving here, like with just us,
Yeah.
right? And then the fact that we actually included time to be able to celebrate it with your family, I thought that was really cool too.
So here was our whole trip. We're in Vegas and we drove to San Diego and we spent 2 days at Legoland, and we'll talk about 2 days of Legoland too in terms of other things. But so we did San Diego, then we went to LA for Thanksgiving, and then the night of Thanksgiving dinner, after we had dinner, we drove back to Vegas.
Yep.
Right, and then the next morning woke up and drove to Utah to spend Thanksgiving with your family for
Yeah.
and so it was a lot of driving, and I know you were dreading it most of the time, but you actually enjoyed it, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's more because of I started to get car sick now,
Oh.
right? So it's more of that. But if it wasn't for that, like I would say it was worth it with all the driving and everything. I mean, you're doing most of the driving anyway.
Mhm.
The kids are a lot easier to deal with in the car. So yeah, it was worth it.
Okay. So going to the 2 days of Legoland, we've never done a 2 day theme park because we're not spending that much money.
Hmm.
Like it's just absolutely no point. Like to me that falls into the spoiled category,
Yeah.
right? But it was because your brother and sister-in-law got a 2 day pass,
Hmm.
and they wanted to do Sea Life Aquarium and Legoland, and to be able to do that, and I was like, all right, well, 2 days with family, that's fine. But I do feel like 2 days at Legoland was way too much.
It was a lot, but I think we balanced it out. And I think thinking about the 2 days, it was more of just wanting to let the kids have their time together. Because that rarely ever happens.
Yeah.
There's always something that comes up. And like for me growing up, I remember all the trips and time that I spent with my cousins. So I feel like that's something that they should have too, because now that we're in Vegas and we're in between both families and they're closer to their cousins, like why not make the trips?
I guess it was kind of a win-win for us, right?
Yeah.
So like the kids got to do their Legoland,
Hmm.
and for us, we made it a whole trip.
Yeah.
Right? Spending a couple days here, a couple days there, things like that.
And I think we've also realized that it's so much easier going with cousins because the cousins play with each other.
Mhm.
They're more well behaved and they have each other to like keep busy, and then we get to kind of somewhat relax, right?
See, here's the thing: when you say like well behaved because they're together,
Yeah.
at this age, yes, right? And then as they get older and older, the more you leave them alone, they get more problematic and
Mm.
become more brave to do bad things together, right?
I don't know yet.
Because they have each other, so they can never get in real trouble, right?
Yeah, but if the parents are there, we'll try to guide our kids so that they're not going to be
Yeah.
bad influences to each other. That's the goal.
Yeah. So one of the last things I want to talk about is all the things that we give our kids, right?
Hmm.
And what we're doing is really parenting them by teaching them how to be grateful and earning stuff and things like that. But at this age, do you think that we should be more of their best friend or continue being the parent?
I think we should continue to be their parent, and we can wear the friendship hat sometimes, but I think for the most part we have to like set that boundary and be the parent.
Because I'm always going to be the parent, right? With
Right,
them,
yeah,
and the way I act and say things to them.
Mhm.
But every day I want to be their best friend, because keep in mind, these kids outside of school, we are their only friends.
Right.
Like they actually have no friends. You and me are their best friends. So it's like, at what point do we just be best friends with them? Like if we keep being their parents, and then when they turn 18, now you want to be their best friend, but they don't want to be your friend anymore.
Well,
Now,
you balance it out. I think once they become like closer to preteens, then it's like you kind of have to be both and to show them what friendship should be like, to kind of let them know what to expect, and just to to let them know that they can rely on you and that you'll be more dependable than their friends, if that makes sense.
this is where I think spoiling matters. So let's say the more you take Leia to Disneyland with you and the more fun you have with her, she's going to think, wow, it's so much more fun with my mom than my friends, hopefully. But then if you were to buy her something every time at Disneyland, she'd be like, this is awesome because every time I go with my mom, I get something. When I don't go with my mom and I'm with my friends, I'm talking about like older Leia,
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't get anything. So now she wants to do things with you more and more. Well, because you buy her stuff. But like, is this where spoiling your kids is actually beneficial?
I mean, I think it's like to a certain extent. It doesn't have to be so much of like taking her to Disneyland, but it could be like, okay, well, if you go with me to the movies or you come out to eat with me, like I'm gonna be getting you food and spoiling you with
Right. It's
stuff like that. But if you
it's
go,
as simple as that,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
going to eat with you versus them eating with friends in their college years,
yeah,
right? They can only buy the cheapest thing on the menu at a restaurant,
yeah.
but eating with us, they get an appetizer, a meal, a drink, maybe dessert if you want to
Mm-hmm.
spoil them like that, and like that, I feel like is a good spoil because now they're grateful because they've experienced both sides and they're like, I love spending time with my parents, even though they get stuff from it, but they understand like how good that feels, right? Compared
Yeah.
to like always eating cup of noodles with their friends and things like that.
Yeah,
Like
because
it
if you do stuff
sucks.
like that and you don't share experiences with them, it's going to be like, well, going out with my friends and other people and their families is more fun. Like, why am I going to be home with my parents who don't do anything with me or spend time with me, or,
Do you know what Leia says to me all the time now?
what?
Like a few times a week, she'll say this. She says, Dad, you make the best food.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I didn't really understand it when she said it because I'm just like, okay, cool. Yeah, because I make food every day, right? I'm the cook in the house. I just, and she's just thanking me, trying to be polite.
Yeah.
But now what I'm realizing is that because I ask her, hey, when I pick her up from school, I say, hey, what did you eat for lunch? And she barely eats her lunch,
Yeah.
and now we're finding out that she doesn't like the school food.
Mm-hmm.
So she's actually learning that she's grateful that I can cook good food at home,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time it's bad because she don't eat the food at school.
I know. Yep.
So it's
That's
like
another thing.
it's a I don't know, it's like a win-lose situation here. But the biggest thing is like she's actually learning how to be grateful with food and
Yeah.
me making the food for her.
Right? Because if she doesn't experience the school lunches and other things, she's just gonna always think that she's entitled to having like really good food, you
Yeah.
know? So mm.
So I don't know. I don't know. I'm happy that they get spoiled. Sometimes they act spoiled, but
Mhm.
we pull it back and try to teach them, earning and gratefulness. At the end of the day, I think you are doing a good job, Mom.
Thank you. I think you are too. Yep.
Yeah, that was a thumbs up for me.
Oh,
Oh, what
your
the
knuckle.
hell?
Did I hit you?
Oh, you hit me with the ring.
Sorry. On the dry spot too.
With
Is
the
it bleeding?
Yeah, it is. With the
Sorry.
wow, talk about being grateful with the expensive ring that I got you. You're hitting me with it.
Yeah.
You trying to break something so expensive? That's what I say to the kids all the time. I bought that for you, and now you're gonna break it. You need to take good care of it.
Yep. Lectures are important, right? I don't know. I don't know.
All right, guys. If you guys have anything you can put in the comments about how you teach your kids, to not be spoiled and what kind of talks you have with them. I love to learn from all of you as well. And so would other viewers and listeners. If you guys enjoy this podcast episode, make sure you guys subscribe to us on all podcast platforms, right? Including YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, TikTok, and Instagram. And we'll catch you guys next time on Love and Rice.